and welcome to the CGIS Brief. We are going to chat today about scams and fraud abroad. So, what is the CGIS Brief? So the CGIS Brief is a new series that CGIS started just this fall, where we take 30 minutes and we talk about a different topic every 2 weeks. Generally, this topic is something that we'd love to talk about, but we just don't have time to get to it, like general orientations and things like that. So generally it is the trio that you see here on the screen. However, Ashton is out today, so you just have the two of us along with one of our special guests. But yes, I have not introduced myself. My name is Callie Rouse. I am the Health and Safety Assistant at CGIS, and I use she, her pronouns. I am also going to be your moderator for today's event, so I'll be checking the chat for any comments you have.
And my name is Steven Gonzalez. I am the communication specialist here at CGIS, and my pronouns are he, him, his.
Awesome. And our special guest is our colleague, Ben.
Hey, everyone. My name's Ben Peipert. I'm one of the 6 CGIS advisors. I do all the programs in Asia, plus the environmental programs. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I lived in Taiwan for many years and traveled a lot in Southeast Asia and also Asia. So I'll be talking about some of my experiences today over there.
Yay, welcome, Ben.
Cool. And so Ben was the one who actually proposed this topic, I think kind of based on experiences he had abroad. We'll all be sharing a couple of different experiences around this topic. But to get us started, why are we talking about scams and fraud abroad? So one of the big things is that getting scammed can ruin your time abroad. I mean, that's a pretty crappy way to start or end or even have the middle of your experience abroad is to get scammed. And there are a couple of other things of why it sucks so much. So one, you could be put in a dangerous situation. Someone could lead you astray from where you're supposed to be, away from other people, and try to get something out of you and things like that. It's just not a good situation to be in. In addition, you could lose significant amount of money or personal information. Oftentimes, a couple of the really key things that people are trying to get out of you is money, your phone, your passport, all of which is really important. You want to make sure that you don't lose while you're abroad. In addition, getting scammed or cheated out on something can really give you a bad impression of the entire country and kind of like skew your thoughts towards that country in a way that's not necessarily accurate. So you can think, oh my gosh, I got scammed and I got my money stolen in this place in Rome. I hate Italians. They just suck. Like that's a very big thing to say about all Italian people that we really don't want you to have. And so it's best to try to do your best to avoid these experiences from happening. So I'm going to hand this over to Ben now to talk further on this.
All right. Thank you, Callie. So first of all, it's not just overseas where scams occur. Scams happen in the United States as well. And they can happen in any country or city that you go to. Also, a lot of scams are universal, but there are also kind of many location-specific scams as well. Travelers and tourists are also often easy marks or targets for scammers because they're usually unfamiliar with the new environment and the new culture. And they can often be a bit too trusting of others when they're overseas traveling and often lack like the situational awareness as well as the environment they're not familiar with. So travelers also may be only in the area for a day or two. So if they do get scammed, they don't often have time to report that to the authorities. They don't want to take time out of their vacation to do that. And also they might not know how to report a scam. I was traveling in Cambodia and I had gone out to dinner and I was walking around outside, just looking around, and a British guy approached me saying that his passport and his wallet and all of his belongings had been stolen from the hostel he was staying in, and he was asking me for like $20 US so that he could like phone his relatives back in the UK and make arrangements for them to send him money and get his passport back. I didn't know if this was a scam. I thought at the time that it could have been, but I also wanted to help out my fellow travelers. So I gave him like 20 bucks. I don't know if that was real or not, but just lets you know that like wherever you go, scams can be there. So I think I mentioned before, they can happen in any country, and there's a whole range of different scams. And scammers are always evolving and trying to come up with new ways to con travelers. Uh, Another example I have, when I was traveling in Vietnam, one of the people I was traveling with had their passport and their wallet stolen out of their big backpack while they were on the sleeper train. So during the night, the person had put their backpack next to their bed on the sleeper train, and someone had come in and either cut open or opened the pocket and taken out like the wallet and a bunch of stuff. And I think Callie also has another example.
Yeah, so I thought of Rome as an example because I actually experienced one or witnessed one kind of scam like this when I was in Rome. This woman was like giving out flowers to random tourists. But the thing is once you were given flowers, she would then be like, oh, you stole that from me. You have to give me money for that. And amusingly enough, the situation happened that the person was like, I'm not giving this back to you, and like ran off. Not that I necessarily recommend that. I would maybe recommend like just dropping it and being like, I don't want that. But like being cautious of accepting things from strangers can be helpful too, because they may try to coerce you out of money. So yeah.
Yeah, so in this slide, we have like 6 images up, and Callie talked about the friendship bracelet scam. I just talked about like train pickpockets, but there are hundreds of other ones. And in the resources list at the end, you can go to the links and look up these on your own if you'd like. But I'm going to talk about two common scams that happen. They're kind of universal scams, but these happen particularly in Southeast Asia, especially in Thailand, which sees millions of tourists every year. And in fact, Bangkok is ranked as the world's #1 most visited city, with around 25 million visitors per year. So there are a number of targets coming in every year for scammers to cheat. So I'm going to tell you about one. It's called This Attraction is Closed scam. And what it is that, let's say you've arranged to go to, let's say, a famous temple or a big market in Bangkok. And as you're approaching the site, or you're getting to a taxi or something to go to the site, someone comes up to you, or the taxi driver tells you that, oh, the attraction is closed. They might say, like, if you're going to this famous temple, they might say, oh, it's closed for renovation, but I can take you to a better one that's nearby. Or if you're going to a market, there's a famous massive weekend market in Bangkok, and typically these scammers will tell you that the weekend market is closed. But of course there are other markets and that they can take you to, and they ask you what you want to buy. And then it can even happen with hotels or hostels. You might be on the way to a hostel, and someone approaches you, and they'll say like, oh, this hostel isn't safe, or it's too expensive. I can show you a better one and get you a discount, that kind of stuff. So what they're doing is trying to reroute you from where you're going to another location. And usually if they take you to that, say, for instance, another hotel, they would get a cut of the money that you would pay from the owner. So each time, if they reroute you to a different place, they end up getting some kind of cut from whoever they're taking you to see. So there's some simple ways to just avoid this. One of the main things is to just basically research the location before you go there. And that can be as simple as like opening up a guidebook or getting on the internet and checking where the location is, what the hours are, what days they're open, things like that. Also, you can definitely ignore anyone who approaches you claiming that a location is closed. Usually a big tourist destination is not just suddenly closed. And then also, if you can, it's good to take public transportation to those sites. That way you avoid dishonest taxi drivers or tuk-tuk drivers trying to reroute you to another place. And this, like I said, happens a lot in Thailand, but it also can happen all around the world. The other common scam that I'm going to talk about is called the newspaper distraction scam. This one is also universal, but it's quite common in countries, especially countries that have a coffee shop or a cafe culture. In fact, a CGIS student had their iPhone swiped using this technique last year in Argentina, as well as in London. So it happens everywhere and it's quite common. So what happens is you go into a coffee shop or a cafe to check your email or read a book or whatnot, and you put your phone down on the table along with your computer, and someone comes up to you, someone approaches you with a newspaper in their hand. And what they do is they strategically sort of place the newspaper on the table over your phone, and they distract you by asking you questions or chit-chatting with you. And then once they're done, they lift up their newspaper, but of course your phone is in their hand under their newspaper, out of sight. And they take it quickly, and then usually they'll pass it on to someone else in the cafe, so that if they are caught, they won't have any of the evidence on them. So this, like the other scam, also has a few ways that you can avoid this. So first of all, don't put your phone on the table where it's easy to swipe. Keep it away inside a pocket or a backpack. Second, be attentive to your surroundings and belongings, and also to people coming up to you. If you have any other valuables besides your phone, just try to keep them out of sight in a secure place, like a zippered pocket or a locked backpack. And then again, be wary of strangers just randomly coming up to you and asking you questions or trying to talk to you. Also, if your phone does get stolen, it's good if you have a phone finder app in there, and also have your phone password protected, as well as all your important data backed up. And for students, it's also good to have an alternative method to access Duo. So Callie is going to tell you a bit more about that.
Yeah, and I would make a note just in general with your phone. It's good to do some research ahead of time about remote wiping your phone if it gets stolen. Just because, like, I know I have like so many different accounts that I access on my phone because it's just super convenient. But you wouldn't want somebody else to be able to access that information too. But with Duo, yeah. So obviously we use Duo to get into anything related to and a lot of people use their phones as their second authenticator. And so what you should make sure to do is you can look up on like safe computing and things like that about alternatives that you can use to access Duo. Typically people just make sure to copy down one of the codes. And so they use like a written like 6-digit code or whatever like that they can like type in instead of having that push notification to their phone. But no, if you don't do that, you don't remember to do this, and your phone does get stolen, you can always contact ITS and they can help you get special access into your device.
Good. All right, so as always, it's that time again to talk about taking action. We talk a lot in these briefs about being prepared. And the only reason why we do that is because it will literally make your life so much easier the more you know before you get to your host country. So what do you need to know before you go? You're definitely going to want to figure out your logistics, right? So address to where you're going to want to go or visit, and have them in English and in the local language, just in case you need to ask for help. which area of the city will your destination be. It'll be helpful to know if those areas are predominantly safe, or will it be in a touristy spot? Will it be congested, or will it be light and easy? And then average travel time and distance between your destination and accommodations, just so that you can be aware of the time of day, how long you'll be out, and when you can expect to be back to your accommodations. Knowing the operating hours so that you can plan to get there when you know an attraction is open, and try to know the admission costs ahead of time, or if you can purchase tickets in advance. I always try to buy tickets in advance so that I can just pull out my phone and have them scan it really quickly rather than having to expose my wallet to the world. But if you're paying with cash, try to have the exact change ready to go when you're purchasing your ticket. And then look up if there's a dress code. There may be some attractions like churches or temples that may ask you not to have your shoulders exposed, or no open-toed shoes allowed, or anything like that, really. And then also know whether or not there are restricted items like big bags, backpacks, water bottles. You definitely don't want to have to check, like code check anything if you don't have to, as people can be known to go through your things when you get things checked. Be familiar with exchange rates, local currency, taxes, and how much things typically cost. So when dealing with local businesses or street vendors, it'll be important to know exactly how much you're paying in advance, but also keep in mind that the seller might see you as a tourist and might try to overprice certain items because they think you're unfamiliar with the currency, or they may try to charge you a higher tax rate. So overall, it's just good to know these little facts. And then be aware of local laws, regulations, and customs. This is a big deal, mostly because tourists don't tend to look this information up and can end up getting into a lot of trouble. When I was in Italy, I was trying to score a faux Prada bag from my sister-in-law from a street vendor. One, because I couldn't afford a real Prada bag, and two, I didn't really like her that much at the time. So we were just, we were just about to make the transaction until the guy looked to his right and saw the police coming. And when I tell you, he snatched up that bag so quickly, he was gone before I could even blink. And that's because it is illegal to sell counterfeit products in countries like Italy or France. And in some cases, if you're caught, it's also illegal. You could face a huge fine or a visit to the local police station. So just make sure you're aware. Even bringing things back into the US make it tricky depending on where you're coming from. So just, again, do that little bit of research on the country that you'll be traveling to. I think, Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, it's also pretty illegal to bring in things from China to the United States. Is that correct?
Well, I think bringing in any counterfeit goods, whether that's computer software or fake purses or anything like that, the Customs and Border Patrol here in the States can definitely fine you a pretty hefty fine if they decide to look through your bags. So it is a risk that you would take, and it's probably not worth doing.
Very true. And then lastly, I mentioned having the address to your destinations in English and local languages, but that should also apply for your accommodations and any other destinations like your classes or where your friends are staying. Just have all that stuff written in a local language as well. All right, situational awareness. So the key here is to really be aware of your surroundings and be aware of how certain behaviors can potentially put you at risk to being scammed. You're definitely going to want to avoid appearing lost or confused. Again, this is a big part about being prepared before you travel. Even in the mornings before you leave your accommodations, make sure to look up the route you'll need to take to either get to the destination or the metro or tram that you'll have to catch. There are some really helpful apps that will tell you which trains to take, and you won't even have to stop to look at a map. You'll be blending in no time. When I'm traveling in general, even to the grocery store, I always try to scope out things before I move. Literally, I'll be at the end of this grocery store aisle looking at how busy it is. Do I want to risk dodging 3 to 4 people who are too close to these chips that I desperately need? And then I decide to ultimately not go down that aisle because 1, I don't want coronavirus, and 2, I'm on a diet. So, and I like to think that you can apply these same methods to your traveling. You need to know the location. When you arrive, scope it out and make a decision whether or not you want to proceed. Some tactics that I've implemented in my travels have been something like, if I'm lost, I'll duck into a coffee shop, or, I mean, it's typically a coffee shop, so that I can decompress and reevaluate, and, just take a second to just get comfortable with where I'm at and figure out how to get to the next place. Another thing that's helpful is when you're traveling with the groups, have one person look at the directions while others keep an eye out on the surroundings. Your identity or appearance may prevent you from blending in. So that's definitely something that you're going to want to consider when you go abroad. So this can be anything ranging from the color of your skin to wearing a cowboy hat. As a POC, I'm constantly thinking about how the color of my skin can impact my time abroad. So it might be helpful to research attitudes towards particular identities in your host country. As an LGBTQ member, I want to know how that might impact my safety abroad. On top of that, I'm an American, and we all know that our reputations precede us in other countries. So definitely spend some time trying to think critically about how your identity can be perceived in a country, and look for testimonials from other people within those identities to determine how they navigated their time abroad. And as we talk about appearances, like what we're wearing, here are just a few signs of tourists. So one, fashion out of sync with locals. In my own opinion, this is a hit or miss, because I think in today's society, we're used to people, even within our own communities, making huge fashion statements. But think about how your reactions typically are to people who are making those said fashion statements. Usually you're like, oh my God, look, or you're bending your neck backwards trying to follow them, or you're noticing what they're wearing. So that's exactly what anyone who's trying to scam somebody is doing, right? They're keeping an eye out, they're looking, and they're watching you. There can still be those certain indicators to locals that lead them to assume you are a tourist, and you're going to want to try to avoid that. Sometimes we may overdress because we're trying to look really awesome for our Insta photos, or sometimes we can wear something as little as a baseball cap, which is usually associated with American culture, and that will instantly cause people to react, and in this case, potentially scam you or pickpocket you in any way. Looking at your phone or map a lot, like I said, do that stuff on your downtime, when you're not around people, when you're in an isolated situation. It's just better to make sure that your attention is always on your surroundings. Carrying a camera. Obviously, you're going to want to take photos, and I don't think we're discouraging that, but if you're not an experienced traveler, scammers or thieves might see your camera and think, one, you're a tourist, and two, you've got money. So create a plan. What I typically do is I try to limit the items on my person so that I can really only worry about one thing. In the past, I've taken a professional camera, and I typically leave my phone behind. I have my protective wallet stuffed underneath my shirt. And so really, I just have my camera to really worry about. And then lastly, status symbols like iPhones and expensive brands like a camera. Some of these items that we carry or wear with us might be an indicator to scammers that you might have money, so they can easily take advantage of you. The whole point is to try your hardest to fly under the radar. And I think there are ways that you can continue to express your identity while fitting in with the locals. The Prada bag or the Chanel earrings may not be worth the stress it could cause. So really think hard about it and see what other people are doing. Everyone at CGIS has experienced something, so just ask us, ask your advisor, and we'll most likely have some tips for you. And sometimes we learn through our students so much. We get so many student stories, and there's just so much that you can do. Lastly, I do want to say that a lot of it will come down to confidence. Once you get familiar with your surroundings, the easier it will be to not always have to be alert. I had gotten to a point where I became super comfortable with carrying my camera on my neck, no backpack, 20 euros in my pocket, maybe a credit card just in case of an emergencies. And I was mistaken for a local on many occasions. So for those of you who are looking for longer term stays, that might be you after a month or two in your host country once you've learned how to navigate. But for those of you who are concerned, definitely take those steps that are going to make you feel comfortable and safe in your new environment.
Awesome. So I'm going to highlight a couple of helpful apps. So the first one is XE Currency. So like we mentioned, knowing current and the local currency is super helpful. I would also add here, just as an aside, in addition to knowing the currency, knowing like the going rates for things. So, you know, looking up cost of living comparison on Numbeo, Numbeo?
Numbeo.
Numbeo, okay, Numbeo can be helpful, but also I would recommend chatting with locals about it. I remember a particular instance where I was in Lithuania. I needed to just get across town to get to my bus to leave town. And the local I was with was like, hey, look, they're gonna overcharge you. This is what I pay, and this is like too much. Like if they say this, like don't agree. And so like I negotiated the rate when I got there, or like, you know, when I got to the cab, and they quoted me a way higher rate, and I was like, my friend said it only cost this, and so I negotiated it down. So in addition to using apps like this, using local resources once you're there also will be really great for you, to provide some more context. Citymapper. So Citymapper is good for public transportation and mapping. My personal favorite though is Google Maps, because you can download an entire city map, and I would like star where I was going to be going during the day and like put my transportation routes. It was great. Rebtel is good for low cost or free international calls without using an internet connection. This is really helpful if you get things stolen from you or something like that, and you need to get connected with somebody to help you out. Lonely Planet is a great kind of like overview of a location for that doing your research aspect of things. And like I mentioned, I love Google Maps. Google Translate is great as well. You can also like download languages and communicate with people via that. But yeah. Overall, these are our resources. So we will be sharing this out with you guys afterward, so you can definitely, you know, take a look through these different links. That's the word. But overall, I wanted to say, you know, like we provide you with all these different stories and things like that, not to like freak you out that like this is, you know, concerning. I mean, like, you know, it's something you don't want to go through, but it's not something that you necessarily are going to, you know, have to face. And as long as you take these steps, I feel like your anxiety is going to go down, and you're going to be a more educated traveler and can potentially avoid these kinds of situations. However, if you do get in a situation where you need help, and you don't know what to do exactly, contact us. We can always help you. We've helped students through these situations prior. Next time on the CGIS Brief, food culture abroad. So 2 Thursdays from today, same time, same link. We will be talking about food culture abroad. We will be joined by our director, Michael Jordan. He is a very well-traveled guy, has sampled food from all around the world, and he is going to be our key special speaker on food culture abroad in 2 weeks from today. All righty. Have a great day.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben, for coming.
Thank you for
and
having.
helping.